I mean, I knew I was different, but it wasn't something I was like obsessing or thinking about,
Mm.
Mm.
right? Until I got to London, and then suddenly I was in a virtually all black environment.
Okay.
And that was weird to me because the village I grew in, I was the only black kid in this village.
Yeah.
So suddenly to come into an environment that was all black. I remember going to school. I think it was Oldfield Road Primary School. I don't know if anybody knows it. Doesn't
No.
exist anymore, apparently.
No.
Whereabouts? What part of London? We Northwest London?
He said heart.
Northwest London.
Yeah. Okay.
And then going into the playground and suddenly seeing 90% of the kids were black.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I just felt like a fish out of water.
Wow.
Okay.
I didn't understand. They looked like me,
Mm.
but I didn't understand anything about blackness.
Mm.
I didn't understand what was going on. I just felt lost.
Welcome to the Fully Booked Podcast. You hear myself, Mace,
Myself, French.
Myself, Andrew.
and today, Fully Booked meets special. If you knew the journey that this guest has been on, you're about to discover it if you don't. Gamal Turawa, have I pronounced it correctly?
Yeah, but you can
Yeah.
call me G.
G, welcome to the Fully Booked platform.
No, so standing ovation only, please.
G, great to have you on board. I mean,
Thank you.
French mentioned that he had met you at an event recently and he was intrigued by your story, had to have you on the podcast. Since then, I've done my own little investigations and research. Fascinating story.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'd love to just kind of, I mean, French or Pops, I don't know if you want to kick off your question, but I'd love to just take it back to the beginning, man, and just hear a bit about you as a person, you know, where you were born, where you grew up. Just take it right back from the start. And if we can and then from there, we'll kind of go on. Is that okay?
Okay. So you want me to go through 63 years in an hour?
Give us some of the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the
Highlights.
beginning. Yeah.
I was born and then I came on this podcast. No, well, I was born in the early 60s in London.
Okay.
Then fostered out when I was about 3 months old to a family in Kent.
Yeah.
Where I grew up. I grew up in a little village in Kent for about 8 years.
Yeah.
Then I was kidnapped from my foster parents by my father, my biological father, who took me to Harlesden in London. And I went from an all-white environment to an all-black environment.
Mm-hmm.
My name was also changed. So I suddenly became somebody different. Didn't fit in there. A lot of trauma, a lot of troublesome things. Ended up sort of like going into children's homes and foster care. My father was taken to court a few times. Then when I was 16, he told me I was going to Nigeria on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Went out there. 2 weeks passed. I'm suddenly thinking, hang on, I'm still here.
Mm.
Then it went into about 5 weeks, and I said to my uncle, why am I still here? He said, you're not going back. Didn't your father tell you you're not going back? I'm like, oh, I've been duped.
Hmm.
And then I was sent to a village in the middle of nowhere. Escaped from that village, got to Lagos, became homeless, lived under a bridge in Lagos for a while. Then from there, one of my uncles found me. And I drifted from relative to relative. One of my uncles was a big magician in Nigeria.
Okay.
So I was his warm-up man. I used to walk on the stage into stadium saying, are you ready for some magic? And there's nothing like, hearing about 50, 60,000 people shout yes back at you on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
Wow.
Then I got a job in a steel plant where somebody helped me out and bought me a ticket to come back to London.
Yeah.
Came back to London 8 years after I'd left.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to a very different world than the world I left. One, I left it as a kid. I came back to it as an adult.
Okay.
And didn't know anything about being an adult in London. So I struggled for a bit. And then wanted to find somewhere to fit in. I don't know. I just lost. Had a lot of baggage, which we can go into later.
Okay.
Joined the police. I was in the police for 20, 25, 26 years. During that time, I traveled in the police. I traveled all over the country and all over the world, doing various different projects. Became the first openly gay police officer in the Met.
Mm-hmm.
Then left the Met, took up a career sort of like doing training and development. And then a film was made of me, which won a BAFTA.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Recognize.
I see.
And I've got an ego and I'm not afraid to use it. Just to let you know. And here I am now today. That's the highlights.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. As with anything, I think it's easy to give highlights and not really understand the nooks and crannies of people's lives. So I think today we would like to dig a bit deeper into some of those facets of your life. And you've had an interesting and amazing life. And like May said, when I met you at the event and we only spoke, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes maybe. And just from our brief conversation, I was intrigued. And the fact that you was talking about, and we'll get into it later, but you're talking about writing a book, which was what
I am right.
yeah. So that's what made me think you'd be a great guest, because we are a podcast that we talk about books and we like to have authors of books on here.
Okay.
The fact that you're going to be an author and you've got such a colourful story, it'd be a great match to have you on here. But to go back to some of your early childhood, because as you may or may not know, a lot of our early childhood then affects our adulthood and the way we perceive the world. And I don't know whose phone that is.
It's not mine.
But either way, yeah, our childhood goes back. If we look back on our childhood, it tends to affect the way that we see the world later on in adulthood. So one of the things that you mentioned was being taken from your family and moved to I guess a white family, in which is I'm not too sure if you or the audience know, but that was something that they called farming. I don't know if you've also seen the film. It's had not Idris Elba, the other Idris.
Adebowale, Nigeria.
That was a really interesting film. So just based on that, could you tell us a bit about farming, and just even in reference to the film, was that something similar to your experience?
Oh God, yeah, very much so. I remember I went to see the premiere of that film.
Okay.
And I remember watching it thinking, this guy's stolen my life. And, you know, I didn't realize for a long time how many people were farmed.
Yeah.
Because there was a documentary on Channel 5 as well, which was about it.
Yeah.
And the Channel 5 documentary is called White Nanny, Black Child.
Okay.
Which I was supposed to be in, but I was committed to the other film. But I know all the people in there. There was approximately, rough estimate, 70 to 80,000 people of us who were fostered
Wow.
or farmed.
Yeah.
And farming, basically what it was, in very simple terms, you ever heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child?
Yeah, of course.
Which is a very African phrase.
Yeah.
And what that's based on, when I lived in Nigeria, you live in family compounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could wake up in your parents' house, have breakfast in the neighbor's house, right? Have lunch in another house, play around in the third house, and by the time it comes to nighttime, you could sleep in any house.
Yeah.
So it's the whole compound, all the houses in that compound took responsibility for raising the children. And what the parents would do is, your parents would leave you in the compound and they'd go off to university, get their degrees, whatever, get a job. And the compound would raise the children. It's like a big nursery, so to speak. When my parents' generation came over here in the 60s, 50s, they didn't have that support network around them, which was very much part of their culture.
Okay.
So what happened, I don't know, I can't remember, I don't know how it started, but there was a thing called private fostering arrangements came into play, PFAs. And people just put adverts in the paper saying, we're looking for someone to look after our children.
Okay.
And there were no checks done. So it wasn't like today, there were no sort of like checks, or just somebody would say, yeah, I'll do it, pay me X amount.
Yeah.
Um, and people had very different experiences. Some people, it was a nightmare.
Of course.
There's cases where, but I think this is where the term care farming came from, where some people just took in 10, 15, 20 kids and they were just like a herd of kids.
Just to get paid.
Just to get money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I was the only one my foster parents took in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was very blessed because my foster parents were very loving.
Yeah.
That's fine. I said.
Very caring. And I went to them when I was about 3 months old.
Okay.
So I have no memory before
that.
Obviously, I was too young to know. But I grew up there in this village. And as far as I was concerned, they were my mum and dad.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So the method you've just described in terms of how it worked with the ad and the paper, is that specifically how your parents went about it as well? With the ad and the paper? And
as far as I'm aware,
what was the motivations from your foster family for wanting to take you in and take you to Kent, knowing you were a black child? When your parents moved, I assume was you living in London? Yeah, you was born in London, wasn't you?
I was born in London.
Yeah. So what was
that? Like I was 3 months old when it happened.
Yeah. So what was your foster parents?
There.
Did they have any children of their own?
Who?
Your foster parents?
They had a boy.
Okay.
A son, who was like my older brother.
Yeah. Okay. And are you aware of what their motivations were in terms of wanting to take you in?
No, never. You never questioned it because you grew up in an environment where it was your normal. There was no reason to question it.
Okay.
I mean, they're both dead now, so
yeah.
But there was no reason to question why they did it or anything like that. I just saw them as mum and dad.
Of course.
Did you ever feel like, literally, excuse the pun, but did you ever feel like the black sheep within the white family?
I mean, like in the house, right? There were jokes made about my color, but they were made as jokes, so to speak. Yeah.
It wasn't with intent of hurt.
It wasn't. There was no malice behind it, and you're talking about the early '60s, so there wasn't that political correctness or political awareness.
Yeah, okay.
There would be jokes like, if it wasn't for us, you'd be running around with a bone through your nose.
Yeah.
But then outside, I remember being at school. There was in the primary school or infant school, as it was then. As I was going to, and there was these guys who used to bang my head against the wall.
Okay.
Right? And then it got to the point that as soon as I see them coming towards me in the playground, I'd bang my own head against the wall to stop them doing it. Yeah. So I kind of felt that they bullied me because I was black.
Of course.
It's very
but there was never, that was the only time I can remember having really nasty things. My foster mother did tell me that there was one time when she was taking me out in the pram and somebody spat on me.
Okay.
As a baby, right? Called me a monkey. But, I was too young to know anything about that. Yeah. But she did mention that to me before, and I think she's to tell me, about the battles that they had.
Do you recall any of those? I guess, like you just said, you was very young at that age. But what are some of your earliest memories of? I guess I don't know if it was when you've left your foster family and gone to your your original family. Like, at what point did you realize, okay, my skin color is a thing?
When I got to London.
Okay. Can you speak more on that?
I never really, I knew I was different, but it wasn't something I was like obsessing or thinking about. Right? Until I got to London, and then suddenly I was in a virtually all black environment.
Okay.
And that was weird to me because the village I grew in, I was the only black kid in this village.
Yeah.
So suddenly to come into an environment that was all black. I remember going to school. I think it was Oldfield Road Primary School. I don't know if anybody knows it. Doesn't exist anymore, apparently.
Whereabouts? What part of London? Were you Northwest London?
He said
Northwest London.
Yeah. Okay.
And then going into the playground and suddenly seeing 90% of the kids were black.
Yeah.
And I just felt like a fish out of water.
Wow.
Okay.
I didn't understand. They looked like me, but I didn't understand anything about blackness. I didn't understand what was going on. I felt like I just felt lost. And then not only was it the blackness, when I was with my foster parents, I was called Vic.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I went to my natural parents, it was calling me Gamal.
Okay.
And I remember sort of my dad would say, Gamal, come here. And I'll be watching TV or something. I wouldn't answer him.
Mm.
So suddenly I'd get this slap or a kick or something like that. And I'm sort of like, what's going on? Because I wasn't used to being called Gamal.
Yeah.
I was also a very troubled child as well, because when I realized I wasn't going back to my foster parents, as a kid, you can't explain, oh, I'm having this issue.
Yeah.
I became a troubled kid. I was at school. I was disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
At home, I was the perfect child. Well, not the perfect. I was timid.
Mm.
But at school, I was terrible.
Mm.
You're acting up.
I was acting up, and it was trauma.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
It was childhood trauma, but nobody picked up on it then.
Yeah, because I guess we didn't have that type of language back then as we do now, whereas things are a lot easier picked up.
I was just seen as a troubled kid, or lock him in the locker room or whatever.
You mentioned when you realized you weren't going back to your foster home. So I when I was doing my research, I saw where you mentioned one day you came back from school when you was in Kent at your foster parents.
Yeah.
And who turned out to be the person who turned out to be your dad was actually sitting in the living room saying he was going to take you on holiday to London. Was you roughly about 7 years old, did you say? Something like that?
I was about 7, 8, something like that.
8.
Yeah.
Right. So couple of questions. What was in terms of how the whole kind of fostering works back then, what was the arrangement? Was it that your parents could come and take you back at any point? And
it wasn't regulated.
Right. Okay.
Right. There was no regulation. And what I heard later, my dad had heard apparently that some foster parents had actually adopted the children.
Right. Okay.
And I think he was afraid that I would be adopted, because as far as I was aware, my dad never came to visit me or my parents never came to visit me while I was with my foster parents.
Mm.
The only thing I knew about my parents, and I say knew, was this brown envelope would come every Friday.
Okay.
And my foster mother would say, that's from your dad. And I just didn't think anything of it. And then I came home from school this particular day, and I remember walking into the living room. And it was the first time I had physically seen a black person.
How did that make you feel?
I was terrified.
Why?
I'd never seen a black person before. The only black people I'd seen were on TV.
Okay.
And back in those days, it was a black and white TV, and it was programs like Tarzan or Cowboy in Africa or stuff like that, who showed black people as savages in the jungle.
Okay.
So it's fear of the
I
unknown.
thought this guy was, when he said he's taking me to London, again, I'd never been to London. I grew up in fields and orchards and, and all that sort of stuff. So taking me to London was like taking me to the moon.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of like he was not, my dad was not a warm man.
Mm.
And I remember sort of like going to the station with him, walking with him. And this man who I've never seen before, he's taking me to the station. No explanation, no talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we got on the train and I was looking at him, waiting for him to say something. He just sat there reading the newspaper from Kent right up to Victoria. We got off at Victoria Station. I was terrified. It was just chaos. And I was still in my school uniform.
Wow.
And I was so scared that I wet myself.
Okay.
And my dad started slapping the shit out of me on the platform.
Mm.
And I'm like, this man who I've never met is now hitting me. And all I remember, one of the things I do remember is looking around thinking, isn't anybody going to help?
Mm-hmm.
And then he sort of said, you wait till your mother sees you. And I'm sort of like, yeah, you wait till I tell her you were hitting me. And then he drags me off in the wrong direction. One of the things I do remember, getting on a bus from Victoria to Harlesden. And in those days, it was the old double-deckers with the open door at the back.
Yeah.
Hop on, hop
and
off.
You could sit up front on the down deck, and you could sit almost next to the driver, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that fascinated me. That seat fascinated me. And then we get to this house in Hulls, and this woman opens the door. She goes, "There's Mommy's little boy." And I'm like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
And she starts hugging me, and I'm like, "Ugh." And then that night I was put into bed with two girls and told, you're sleeping with your sisters.
Okay.
In my foster parents' house, I had my own bedroom and my own bed.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I'm in this bed sleeping with two girls, and I don't know who they are. They're supposed to sleep anyway. I didn't sleep. Mm. And then the food had changed. I mean, everything changed. And there was this expectation that I was just supposed to just fit in.
Of course.
Mm.
So it was quite a culture shock or culture
Culture
adjustment.
shock. Yeah, that's an understatement and a half. Yeah.
So you've been kind of almost kidnapped. It must have felt like, back to London.
Yeah. Basically.
What was I mean, did you then? I mean, was there weekends spent back with your foster parents or communication or anything like that? Was that just a
There
clean
was
cut?
eventually.
Okay.
Initially there wasn't, and I think what happened. Well, I remember. God, it must have been about a month or so, maybe 2 months after I'd come back, and I decided at 8 years old, I decided I had enough. I'm going back to Kent. So I woke up in my pajamas, grabbed my teddy bear, and walked out the house and said I was going back to Kent.
As you do.
As you do. And I remember this woman found me, a black woman. And she said, where are you going? Where do you live? And I gave my address in Kent.
Okay.
And this is like in Harlesden in London. She was like, how did this kid get from here to this place? And she took me to the police station.
Okay.
Where my mum turned up, took me back to the house.
Mm.
And then that day, I remember they put double locks on all the doors.
Wow.
Mm.
So you must
and
have
took
felt
my teddy bear and threw it away.
Okay.
Wow.
Which was that was traumatic because my teddy bear was like my friend.
Yeah,
the only
no,
thing I had that I could hold on to.
No, I get it.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you know, I found your story like really fascinating. The reason being is because you spoke about your dad a lot in a lot of the things that we've seen obviously prior to today, and not even because my relationship with my dad I felt was quite complex, and I think over a period of time, or certainly let's say in recent years, I'm going to say maybe the past, let's say 5 years, he's not with us now anymore. I've become to understand him a lot more, and I guess my question is like, did you ever get to a point where you understood your father and maybe understand obviously why he was acting and behaving in the way he did towards you, or just in general?
Little bits. And that was only when I went to Nigeria
I thought so.
that I started to hear stories about him in Nigeria from people, and people used to tell me stories about. And I think a lot of my dad was always angry. The only time I ever saw him laughing was with my sisters.
Okay.
And it's interesting when I sit down with my sisters and we talk about those days. They talk about, they were the happiest days. And I'm sort of, not for me. That house was a house of fear. And I think my dad was a frustrated man. It was funny because when I went to Nigeria, there was a lot of people, a lot of relatives who said my dad had helped them out when they were young.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of feel, and I have no basis for this, right? But I kind of felt that other people were living the dreams he couldn't live.
Interesting.
Go on, P.
Sorry, no. That was actually my first question, and I think there was not even a reason behind it. Is that quite early on in, I think, the clip that I watched, like, I resonated with it quite well, because I would say, I'm going to just say maybe 2018, maybe 2019, I heard a lot more about my dad in regards to his time in Ghana. So what I knew of him, like generally speaking, was that he was a banker at one given point in Ghana, then he lived in Germany at one given point, and all of a sudden he was here in the UK. And I never really got the opportunity to really sit and connect the dots as to 1 minute Ghana, 1 minute Germany, and 1 minute the UK. So once you explained one or two bits and pieces within like the documentary and stuff like that, I thought straight away, this sounds like my dad. And I was just kind of like really intrigued as to whether you'd connected the dots as to at least understanding where he came from. And I guess maybe even to give you a bit more context, because I think it will be remiss of me not to give context. So like I'm an Uber driver. My dad was a black cab driver, and I felt that I was experiencing very, very similar things in terms of, let's say, just being frustrated by things on the road and just things of that nature. And then also I'd pick up riders and they'll tell me their stories and stuff like that. And then one day I just sat there and I thought to myself, I found out all these stories about these interesting people, but I don't know nothing about my dad. And again, that's the reason why I went to his house and then had a conversation with him as to just finding out maybe a bit more about his story. Sorry, say that again?
How was he? Did he sit down and talk with you?
Oh yeah, he just spoke for a good hour, 2 hours non-stop. I didn't have to say much. Didn't have to say much at all.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, so I didn't have to say much at all. And it's interesting because you spoke about your sisters. So I would probably say he had because he had a really good relationship with my sister. Whereas what you're saying in regards to your relationship with your dad and yourself and the relationship that you saw with your sisters, I would say the exact same thing. I'm unsure what my brother would say, but like he might say something very similar to myself actually, because he wasn't really in a house a lot when my brother was around. At that point, he'd left and stuff like that. But I think me and my brother will say very, very similar things as to our relationship. So that doesn't surprise me as to what you say. And I think actually that will probably be a very similar story, I think, as to a lot of, I'll say African males. I don't want to generalize, but that's what I think. That's what I think.
It is a very black male story though, isn't it? I mean, you hear that story not only in this country, you hear it in the States, you hear it in Nigeria, you hear it almost anywhere there's a black community, you do hear that father and son story is always a challenging story.
Yeah.
Go on.
I wanna. So I just wanna kind of. Once you touch Nigeria,
You're going to burst into sort of like the Spice Girls. That's a good.
I was trying to find my words because when you touched on Nigerian experiences, not the experiences, but the story you started to hear, I said, all right, I want to hear more about Nigeria, what that experience was like for you. I want to hear, because the point where you left it, you're kind of trying to get back to Kent with your teddy bear, double locks on the door, bolted up. For the next, say, several years, is that you? Are you Northwest London? Are you going to school? Are you starting to engage, fit in, feel a part of the general consensus in that area? How do we then get to Nigeria?
Oh, okay. So, like I said, from 8 to 16, I was a very disruptive child. And my dad's way of dealing with that was to beat me. I mean, I found out recently I've got ADHD.
Okay. A lot of people are finding that out recently, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never knew I had it. As a friend of mine's an assessor.
Okay.
And he came round to my place and he goes, so how's your ADHD? I said, I don't have ADHD. And he's like, well, this says you got a, and I'm like, whoa. And do you do this? Yes. You got ADHD. And I'm like, hell. But it made me realize that maybe that was what my dad, they didn't understand it back then.
Yeah, of course.
So, what was ADHD was disruptive. And my dad's way of dealing with disruption, my dad was not a talker. Right? He didn't sit down and talk. It was the slap, it was the stick, it was a rod, it was a electric cable, it was a rubber hose, anything. It was a kick.
Yeah, a lot of us can definitely relate to that. For sure. Yeah.
And when I started primary school for me was not a place of learning.
Okay.
It was a place of escape.
Wow.
Because I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to go out. You went to school and you came home. Once you were in that house, you didn't leave. We didn't leave. So I wasn't allowed to hang out with anybody. I wasn't allowed to go out with anyone. And all I had was my two sisters then, and we didn't get on. My sisters used my dad's anger as a weapon to control me.
Yeah.
Siblings being manipulative.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Oh, we want you to do this. I'm not doing it. Oh, well, if you don't do this, we're going to tell Daddy you did that. Yeah. And they could see how scared I was of my dad. So I wasn't close to my sisters either. Um, and social services got involved. I think it was my last year of primary school. And my dad had given me this really vicious beating. And I gone to school and I've got all these marks and bruises all over me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't social service. It was National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children.
Okay.
NSPCC, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And they came round to my house and spoke to my dad. I don't know what the conversation was about because I wasn't allowed to be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
My dad then, as soon as they left, my dad beat me again. How dare I bring these people round to the house? Then I started secondary school, and that's where social services really kicked in because my dad gave me this really vicious beating. And when I got to school, they took me to see the nurse, who then called in a doctor. And the doctor said, "So tell me about these bruises." And I said, "I fell down the stairs." And he said, "How many times did you fall down the stairs? Because it looked like you fell down the stairs a lot."
So he knew instantly.
Yeah. And I was taken to a hospital, photographs were taken, and that's when they started taking my dad to court.
Oh, wow.
And they said to him, "Your son's been beaten." And I remember my dad saying that, "It's my son, I can do what I like with him." So that kind of went on from the whole. I ran away from home so many times.
Where did you run to?
So many. Huh?
Where would you run to?
I always tried to run back to my foster parents.
Okay.
Always tried to. I mean, there was a time my dad took out an injunction against my foster parents.
Wow.
That if they took me in, he would prosecute them.
Wow.
Thinking that would stop, that would stop me running away.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I went and lived in the cornfield for a week.
So I know your dad was this disciplinarian in the house. What was it in terms of your mother? I know your sisters couldn't really get involved, but your mother, could she not try and calm him down?
No, oh God, my mom. If you notice for everything, I very rarely talk about my mother.
And go on, because you not picked up on it.
Sorry, go on.
Go on. What was your question?
No, because that was actually one of my questions as to. In fact, I actually wrote it down like that as to. In the clips and the things I've seen, like you mentioned your mum once, and I just wanted to know, I guess, probably very similar to what you were going to say, Mason. Actually, what was your relationship like with your mum? And I don't want to say very similar to even my household, really, and not that my mum wouldn't step in within conversations or let's say issues with my dad and stuff like that. But I think there is a thing where mums can, distance themselves from what might be the relationship between what might be the son and the father. Would I be right in saying so? Like maybe generally speaking?
No. My mom, the reason why I don't talk about my mom, I was never close to my mom. My dad, I understood my dad because the beatings, my dad would beat me and I knew that was it. My mom was manipulative.
Okay.
My mom she would twist everything.
For example, what do you mean?
She got pleasure from watching my dad beat me.
Oh, wow.
My dad's passed, but I still don't. All my life, all my mom has ever done for me is just judge me. I don't feel close to my mom at all.
And you say your sisters had
stepped in. Sometimes she'd just sit there and watch.
Wow.
And, sometimes it felt like she was smiling as my dad was hitting me.
And you say your sisters had a completely different experience in terms of upbringing from their recollection.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think my mom liked boys.
Okay. What gave you that impression?
But not only me, even, as you grow up, you speak to cousins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they all had the same experience of my mom, the male cousins.
Yeah.
Okay.
We sit down and now and they say, we don't think your mom liked boys. And I said, I thought I was the only one that thought that. And they said, no, she was always cruel to us. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Wasn't expecting to go down that road. I should get a couch. And I wasn't breastfed.
Have you ever thought about trying to reconcile with her, or is that off the table?
I have tried.
Okay.
My mum's very dismissive.
Okay.
I mean, when I was talking to her, I remember having a big chat with her, and I said, "Look, this is how." She goes, "Well, you want me to say I love you? Okay, I love you. Are you happy now?" And that was
Okay.
the way she sort of like spoke about it, and then she's now denying anything ever happened.
Mm.
Right. So when I talk about stuff and everything, she goes, "Look, he's telling lies. Everything he's saying is lies, nothing like that." And I'm sort of like, for example, let me give you an example. I tried to commit suicide as a kid,
Okay.
and I swallowed a whole bottle of vodka with a bottle of Panadol.
All right.
And then Leicester School, I vomited in assembly at school. So I was rushed to hospital, and they put me in a ward by myself with a nurse because they recognized this was a child issue. For a 13-year-old to try and commit suicide, this is serious.
Yeah.
And the nurse had to be in the room the whole time. My mom turned up. And as soon as she walked in, this is what she said. She goes, "If you want to kill yourself, tell me about it next time, and I'll show you how to do it properly."
Wow.
That was
Okay.
my mom.
Yeah.
And when I told her about that, she says, "I would never do anything like that."
Mm.
And then I've got my social work records. And the nurse who was in the room when my mom said it made a note of it in the records. And I've got the records. And I showed her and said, "That's there. You said that."
Yeah.
"I'm a mother. I would never say something so cruel." "Yes, you did."
Mm.
You when you came back from Nigeria, I know you said that you were staying in what would be a shared accommodation, and then eventually, I think after a period of time, obviously you had malaria, and then you went into hospital. Did you expect to see your mum then? I know it was a surprise to you to see your sister there, but did you expect to see your mum?
No, what happened was when I first came back from Nigeria, I didn't want to see any of my family. I didn't want anything. I came back, and as far as I was concerned, I'm going to start a new life and just be my own person, go about my life. That's my plan. Then the universe says, "No, I got another plan for you." So I don't know if you know the story about how I ended up in the hospital and stuff with malaria and everything. I knew I had malaria. But the
Okay.
guys in the house didn't know what I had. All they knew is that I've come back from Africa and I've got this strange disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was taken to, I still don't know what hospital it was, but I was locked into a room.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that came in was wearing masks and gloves and the whole thing. It was like being in a sci-fi movie. And then they took a sample of my blood and sent it to the Royal Free Hospital, which is a central blood laboratory hematology place.
Mm-hmm.
And it arrived there, and somebody picked up the sample and looked at it and said, "Hey," and shouted to this woman, "There's somebody here who has the same surname as you."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, my sister worked there.
Okay.
And she comes over thinking, "That's my brother's name. He's in Nigeria. Who is using his name?" So she came up the hospital to confront an imposter.
Yeah.
And I'm lying in the bed. And my sister walks in. Is like, "Who the hell are you? Whoa." So then I kind of felt obligated to go around to the house to see them.
Okay.
And I went around to see my dad and everything like that. And then my mum wasn't home at the time. She was working somewhere nearby. So I went to where she was working, just to see her. And then she said, "Oh," and the first thing she goes, "I'm so glad we sent you to Nigeria." And I'm sort of like, "Do you have any idea what I've been through for the past 8 years?"
Like, yeah.
That's what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
I wanted you to go into some of the experiences that you had in Nigeria, living under the bridge, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to ask you about Richard, which we'll get into that shortly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could,
good. You guys have done your research, man.
of course, we have to be thorough. But yeah, by all means, like if you want to take a few steps back and talk us through what it was like when you first got to Nigeria to the point of finding yourself living underneath a bridge, and how was that experience?
And even how you got there to Nigeria in the first place.
Well, okay. Like I said in the beginning, my dad, it all started when my dad had a stroke in 1978. And which meant that he, all of his left side was paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the night he had the stroke, my mum came in and woke me up about 2 o'clock in the morning and said, "Your dad's in hospital, he's had a stroke." I didn't know what a stroke was, never heard of a stroke.
Mhm.
Right? The only thing I remember thinking was, I hope he dies.
Oh wow.
I remember lying there thinking, I hope he dies. And for those few hours that my mum was at the hospital, in my mind, my whole life, I could see my whole life changing.
Mm.
He didn't die, but he was in hospital for a long time.
Mhm.
And something inside me flicked. My mum just lost it. She went to pieces. And my sisters went to pieces. And what I realized is my sisters had never been without my dad.
Okay.
Right? So they were in this place where there was total confusion. And something in my head said, I need to step up here. And for the time my dad was in hospital, for about a good 6-7 months, I took over that house.
Mm.
I was the one who made sure my sisters were fed, they got dressed, went to school. My mum was crying most of the time, or she was in the hospital. I took care of everything in that house. And then it came for my time for my dad to come home, and he could walk, but with a Zimmer frame.
Yep.
Right? And he said he wanted to come home by himself. My dad was a very stubborn man. And they said, well, what we'll do, they'll put him on the train at one end, and I would meet the train at the other end and take him home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cold, I think must have been November, December time, really cold night. And I went to the station, I got a cab, the train was delayed. The cab driver said, look, if I'm going to wait, I'm going to have to charge you waiting time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, T-Rob, you go off, do what you need to do. The cab station is just across the road. As soon as the train comes in, I'll come over to the office and get a cab.
Mm.
So the train arrived. You get to the point of the story in a second.
Mm.
The train arrived. I went over to the cab office. They said, no, we've got no cabs available. It's cold. It's a cold night. Everyone's grabbing cabs. And I said, oh, please, look, but this is the situation. And one of the drivers came out. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll do this job first, and then I'll do my other job.
Okay.
And I was like, thank you. Dad gets in the car. I sit in the back feeling really proud of myself.
Yeah.
The driver says to my dad, you've got a really good boy here. If not for him, you wouldn't have got a cab here tonight. You should be really proud of him. I'm sitting in the back feeling really proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
We get back to the house. My dad gets out the car. He goes in the house. I pay the driver. I get his bags out the back. As I walk in the door, he's standing at the bottom of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I walk in, he punches me in the face.
Jeez.
And I go flying up across the stairs, and I'm standing there looking and thinking, what just happened? And he says, don't you ever tell anybody I'm sick. And I'm sort of like, you're standing there with a Zimmer frame.
Mm.
Right? There's something in my head just switched. And I just went, fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been working, I've been doing everything, and this is the thanks I get.
Mm.
Right? And then for the next couple of weeks, he was really trying to assert his
authority,
dominance back in the house.
Yeah. Mm.
And I just turned around and I just got up and I ran away. Again, I said, no, I'm not putting up with this. And my nephew, my cousins came over from Nigeria, and him and my mum came down to my foster parents to pick me up and take me back to London.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, I'm not going. And my cousin said, look, I know how to speak to your dad in Yoruba. I can speak to him, and by the time I speak to him, he won't do anything to you. And I kind of trusted this cousin. And we came back to London. As soon as I walked in, and I don't know if any of you, especially have heard of this thing, there was a punishment called picking pin or stooping down.
Mm-hmm. I heard you speak on it.
Sorry?
I heard you speak on it.
You heard me speak on it?
Yeah.
We had to bend down. You balance on one finger and one leg. Yeah. And my cousin started talking to my dad, and he just was not listening. And something in my head just switched. And I stood up and he shouted at me, stoop down. And I just ran at him and I just pushed him. And he flew over the floor. I ran downstairs to the front door. They've locked it.
Okay.
I've run to the back door. They've locked it. So I ran into the bathroom, climbed through the bathroom window into the back garden, jumped over the fence into the neighbor's garden. Their back door was open. I ran through their back door, and I'll never forget, I was running through, and they were sitting down having dinner at the dining table.
Mm-hmm.
And they just see me go, shoo. Ran out, ran to my friend's house. Was there for a few days. Eventually came back. And when I came back home, my dad suddenly became the nicest man ever. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe he now knows. Yeah. Not to. And throughout the whole of that summer of 79, he would sit down, he would talk to me about, oh, this is what I need to do here, and I'm going to do this, and you're going to need to help me with this. And he would get, his help me. I would have to write letters for him to the bank and all this sort of stuff. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm now being respected.
Yeah.
And then it got to about September, October time. And he called me and he said, listen, I need you to be a man. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, there's a big family reunion taking place in Nigeria. I can't travel because I've had this stroke. But I need you to go there and represent the family. Can you do that? It's a big responsibility. And I'm sort of like, yeah, I can do that. Part of my main reason was I'd never been on a plane before as well. I really wanted to go on a plane. So in December, told me I was going for 2 weeks, packed my bags, flew out to Nigeria, arrived in Lagos. Remember, I was staying with a cousin or an uncle and his cousins, and everything, everything's alien to you. And I remember the first time I was taken to Lagos Island, and the first thing that hit me was there was just so many people. It was just heaving with people. And I remember saying to my uncle that as something happens, is there event on today? Because it looked like, when people are coming out of a stadium.
Yeah.
Or a concert. That's how it looked. Just hundreds and thousands of people. And he said, no, it's like this all the time. And the other thing I felt was there was so much tension in the air. I could feel it. Yeah. It felt like if somebody had just struck a match, everything would explode. And I'd never felt that feeling before. And I was staying with this uncle. And then another uncle took me from there to another uncle's place. Where I was staying with this other uncle in a better place than the first uncle. And then about 5 weeks went by. I hadn't gone to any family reunion. There was no talk about me going back. I'm sitting there thinking, so I said to my uncle, I said, hold on, when am I going back to London? And he looked at me and he laughed. He goes, oh, they haven't told you. I'm like, told me what? He goes, you're not going back. And I remember sitting there like, oh shit.